thing you need to do is you're going to grab your math cadence. So to convey to the students their expectations for a particular lesson or a particular unit, I start off by telling them the learning goals or have them look at examples of different problems, and from that they pull out the success criteria. So for this last unit we did with equations and inequalities, I gave them a few equations and inequalities already solved. And as a class we came up with what are those different skills and the different criteria they're going to need to master in order to be successful at solving equations and inequalities. Today we're going to do the same exact type of model, but we're only going to focus on solving. So one of your tasks that you're going to do today is you're going to look at some equations you've solved, and you're going to figure out what mistakes you made so we can work on those skills during our practice today. So in order for them to do that self-assessment, we started off with the what's the mistake. So the students could use other examples to find the mistakes. And then once they found the mistakes in those examples, we had the opportunity to talk to them as a class. They were using their whiteboard, so I could check to make sure each student knew what the mistake was, and then we also had that whole class discussion. All right, what'd you guys come up with? What skill would you tell this student they need to focus on the next time they solve an equation? Hunter?
They need to make sure that they're switching their operations, so if they're multiplying, they divide, and if they're adding, they're subtracting.
Okay, because what did this student do incorrectly?
Instead of dividing, he multiplied the 5.
Okay, so then they were applying those skills to their own work. So they could use their own work to figure out what mistakes am I making, and that's where they could fill out their checklist. And once you have something written on your board, go ahead and share it with somebody around you. If you want to get up and move and find someone else to share with, you can do that. So go ahead.
Change it to division, and that's what I got. And I said it didn't divide, and I got the answer 5.5.
Yeah.
So what's the point of doing these checklists, or how can this checklist help you for this scavenger hunt? Hunter?
So we know what to watch out for to not make mistakes on.
Okay, so could you give us an example, like today when you're doing your practice, what area is going to be your focus?
Using the distributive property.
Okay, using the distributive property. Colton? So the purpose of the scavenger hunt is it gives the students the time to practice solving equations and inequalities without me having to be right there to check their work to make sure they're doing it correctly. So the purpose of the scavenger hunt setup is so they can find the answer, so they know if they found their solution, they did it correctly. Because if you're working on a certain inequality, and then you're searching around the room for the solution and you don't find the solution, you know you did something wrong, you made a mistake. So then look at that checklist, look at the mistakes you usually make, and that should be your area of focus when you go back to make your correction.
You get 33?
Yeah, if you
I got 30. Did you get mine?
Oh, yeah. I hate when I do something like that. Okay, so.
The purpose of working with a partner, I think, is students find it easier doing these review days to verbalize with another student. So if they're having problems or they're struggling, they can help one another.
That makes sense.
420 divided by 14, that would make a lot of holes. Yeah, look.
We don't divide.
Oh, we were supposed to do calculations in there.
Yeah. Okay, so x equals 420. I think there's 420 over, like right over here.
Sometimes what I see the students doing is they solve it on their own first, so at first it's kind of quiet. But then at the end, they almost compare to see if they get the same solution, and that's where I really want a lot of dialogue.
28 plus 28 is what I got for x. 28. 28 plus 28.
Today, I let them work with a partner, so they got a chance to still discuss what they were supposed to be self-evaluating. So eventually down the road, hopefully it doesn't have to be one of these long, drawn-out activities. It could almost be, here's your checkpoint from yesterday. What did you do wrong? What's your area of focus today? So I'm hoping that it becomes a shorter process where the students take on that responsibility for themselves. Okay, so one last time I'm going to have you keep that area of focus in mind. This is your post-it prove it before you leave today. So I want you to put your work on the front and the name on the back. So today was kind of a review day for next week for the big unit test. So once they figured out their area of weakness, that was my goal for them to focus on that area while they were doing their practice. And then for the post-it prove it was my final assessment to see if they improved on that skill or what kids still need some more support tomorrow in a small group. So in this spot right here, I want you to write 3x.
Can I?
Sure, that would help. So the formative assessment practices I've been incorporating have been providing descriptive feedback, so immediate feedback for students as soon as they complete problems. I find it helpful that they have that immediate feedback so they know what mistakes they've made and where they can go from there that day, like that second. Okay, so if you kind of keep in mind that you also show what you did on both sides. So how'd you get from 3x to x and from 12 to 4? Exactly. I've seen the students take on more of a responsibility for what they're getting wrong and what things they need to have mastered by the end. So I oftentimes always tell the students what mistakes they're making and what areas they need to focus on over and over again. But giving the students that responsibility of figuring out what am I doing wrong, what do I need to work on, I've seen them kind of take on more of that initiative themselves where they're noticing that every time I do this kind of problem, I'm forgetting my negative sign or I'm doing the wrong fraction operation. So they've taken on more of that responsibility.